Fragments of Silicon. We won't chicken out of any debates, but we haven't been invited.
All right, welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon. Host Adam, joining as always our petty fan and Galix. Let us shuffle over to the news, such as it is. Petty, once again, you're starting first because, well, things are happening to you again.
Yeah, this might be the least bad, though, all things considered. You know, whatnot, family breaking apart, level catastrophes or whatnot.
Let's not be too hasty here, given that you don't know what's going on.
Valid. So, for those of you who may remember back in June, I mentioned I got blasted with a leaf blower. And it was causing some, at the time, mild eye irritation. Well, fast forward to near the end of August, I've been having some more eye problems. Last Monday, I went to see the doctor about it, and they gave me some eye drops that helped with the itching a little bit. But now my eyes are burning to the point it feels like I jumped in a pool with a little too much chlorine. So that's not fun. And they're still watery and whatnot, so... and extremely red. I was finally able to get a hold of somebody at my doctor's office today to see about getting a referral to an ophthalmologist. So hopefully this can be sorted out. Because another problem is my eyes are extremely light sensitive. Like most of my things I have on dark mode, but like if I go to look at even a Google Doc, the white page is just too much for my left eye to look at. And, like, it's obviously affected playing games because, bright flashes. So this may affect this week's multiplayer mayhem unless I did mention to my doctor if there's anything she can prescribe to help until I see the ophthalmologist, so hopefully I get either an email or just a message from my pharmacy that we have some eye drops ready for you. Which, if that does happen, then multiplayer mayhem may be on for Friday, but still up in the air.
Yeah.
As far as fun stuff, I did Friday I participated in my local game shop's Lorcana I guess event. It's kind of fun. I've been playing TCGs for over 25 years, and it's always a fun experience watching, a new kid, this be their first game, and like, God, that was me 20 years ago. Jesus. So yeah, I helped walk some kids through how to play, because it's nice getting, new people to come even into your local game shop, because that means more business. So hopefully they, come around for more games. Right now they're looking at doing the Lorcana stuff on Fridays and Sundays. Luckily I can still look at cards because the shop's obviously a little on the not eye-piercingly bright side, and also cards aren't backlit yet. So I can still at least play card games with my eyes a little messed up. And that is good because it means I can still see. And also this weekend, I decided to say screw it and hacked my 3DS. Because if Nintendo's going to kill the eShop, screw them, I get what I want. I like the only fun thing I've really done with it though is custom themes, and I did get Digimon World redigitized decode because there was an English patch on the H shop. So I still have the game, so it was more just I can now play the game in English instead of faffing about trying to follow along with a translated script thing on GameFAQs, as we did back in the old days. As far as I'm going to do anything else with it, it really depends if there are any other like Japan exclusive games I don't remember. Worst case, I may dump a few of my games to my micro SD card, like specifically Omega Sapphire or Alpha Sapphire. The Gen 3 remakes have notoriously bad flash in their carts, and there have been reports of them spontaneously dying. Like, not just losing your save, like straight up blanking the carts level dying. So I'm probably at least going to back that up just so I can still play the game I owned in, 5-10 years. And I guess recommendation, if you got it on launch, the first batch, a lot of them in English and EU had really bad NAND flash. So if you got it on launch, I would suggest backing it up if you can. But then again, you may have gotten lucky and you weren't, yours is going to be fine forever.
I think I barely played those.
I don't even think I'd finished the Delta episode yet.
No, I mean like literally barely played them. I have never actually successfully completed or even gotten past about the second gym
and actually,
in a Ho-En-based game.
Barely playing them might actually be worse because you're not putting any power into the NAND flash to help keep it alive. So you may want to shove yours in the 3DS and make sure it's still good if you get a chance.
Maybe. I'm more referring to the fact that I don't think I would have lost much.
Yeah. Well, other than, the game completely being non-functional.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do have the Event Greninja that I need. I think that can go to box or go to bank. I just
Event Greninja?
Yeah, the Ash Greninja.
I thought that was only in Gen 7.
I think you can still go to bank. I just can't transfer it to any of the new games. I need to look into that. But like, say I got Alpha Ruby or the twin game, I could port it to that if I wanted to. But I think
I'm not sure about that.
Anyway,
yeah, some we can look into later. But yeah, outside of that, I think that's it on my department. So next victim,
Galax.
Well, not much has gone on. I'm holding down the house fairly well while my parents are away. Had a somewhat frustrating situation regarding insurance because my psychiatrist recently recommended I try some medicines for ADHD. Or more accurately, he'd been recommending it for a while, and I finally decided I would try it. So a while ago, I tried methylphenidate, which is, I think, Ritalin, and I didn't like the way that made me feel.
Oh, God, don't get me
started. So he recommended another one, which is the current trade name is Vyvanse, I guess. And I was going to get that, except for there's no generic yet, and it's super expensive, and my medical insurance doesn't do anything for prescriptions aside from get you a discount. Okay, I mean, it does, but you have to go through the deductible first, and my deductible currently is about 3 to 4 times what I feel comfortable spending on medical stuff in a year.
Valid.
So,
I mean, at least yours kind of covers
also
it.
the entire system is absolute bullshit. Where it's like, okay, so you pay us every month. Every time you get paid, you pay us for the right for us to not pay for anything until you spend $5,000 on it. And then also,
Insurance.
after that, then we'll cover like 80%.
Insurance. The only
American
thing that
healthcare is
penalizes you
wild.
for using it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it makes me glad I have the insurance I have.
Yeah.
I don't have to deal with most of it.
I mean, I have work insurance. It's not like bad insurance. It's just,
I wish mine would cover ADHD medication, but only if I went back to school.
Yeah. Anyway, currently I'm thinking I'm still gonna try and pick up the friggin' 14 pills
Mm-hmm.
that the doctor gave us to try, but
they generally have like starter trial things to see if it's worth looking into.
I mean, that's the thing that's expensive it's like $10 a day, and this was for like 2 weeks. So anyway, I'm still going to try and pick it up. See if I can. My parents might help me a little, or I can take some money out of the bank or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But going into that for any kind of longer term use is going to have to wait until a generic version comes out, which hopefully sounds like it might around the end of this year or something.
Yeah,
so we'll see how that goes.
Moral, I don't like paying for this, and not like I'm gonna die if I don't get this medication type thing.
Yeah, I mean, I've been coping without medication for ADHD for a long time, and I don't think my condition has gotten worse. I mean, they thought I had ADHD when I was a kid. But then they figured out that I had depression and started medicating me for that, and probably actually have both along with the autism. So
both are not entirely,
So mostly, I'm just concerned about long-term focus at work and stuff, and it would be nice to be able to have that. But I also don't want to take medication that's going to make me totally wired or anything, so I'm being cautious about it.
Or the other way around, where you're like a total zombie.
Right.
Because that's how you have ADHD. Uppers are downers, and downers are uppers.
Yeah, I think caffeine doesn't work properly on me.
Yep.
Like, it does sometimes, and it doesn't always completely zonk me, but...
Yeah, and that's how you have ADHD actually, and not just an shiny kid.
Yeah, I'm not 100% anyway. So that's been delayed a little bit, and I'm a little bit upset that it costs that much, and also I found another way that insurance fucks me for no reason.
Mood.
I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow, and hopefully that'll actually count as a checkup, which is covered, and not an office visit, which is only partially covered.
God, I hate insurance so much.
Anyway, video game wise, not much special. I'm making good progress in catching up on my catalog in Splatoon 3, and still doing a little bit of Pokemon Scarlet occasionally in preparation for the Mewtwo raid that is end of next week, I think.
Something like that. It's getting close.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I have enough stuff that I can make a fully EV trained level 100 thing to fight it in an hour or two.
Oh yeah, doesn't take long.
It's just a question of, okay, so what am I gonna do here? Again, as stated last week, Mewtwo can run almost any really strong offensive moveset on either side with almost any coverage that it wants. So
yeah.
I need to know what I'm preparing for before I come up with something.
Yeah, and it may be something we may need to get you, me, and Ogre together so we actually have competent people, because I know how the randos sometimes can be.
Yeah, or some other online friends or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't, and certainly if I get one for me, I wouldn't mind helping you guys if I figure something out.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Because the other 7-star raids have already been pretty bullshit mostly.
Yeah, anyway.
The last couple were not as bad, but also they weren't as strong. But no offense to Chestnut and Rillaboom, but they're not exactly known for being top-tier threats among the starters. But anyway, Mewtwo's way stronger than that.
Yeah. Yeah, you can suss out those plans later.
Yep. Yeah. No. That's about all I got. I think.
All right. I guess it's my go, and yeah, nothing really going on this week. Sometimes that happens. So merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast. And joining us this week is Bridgeburner of HellForge Studios.
How's it going?
It goes well. It goes well. How are you doing today?
Not too bad. Actually, it's depths of winter here in New Zealand, and as is often the case with such weather, coming down with a bit of a cold, which is acutely aware of the irony because that's what stopped us last time we tried to do this interview. So I thought, no, I'm not gonna skip it again. But yeah, other than that, no, I'm well, thanks.
Yeah. Well, mostly good to hear, I suppose.
Yeah, a little bit of sniffles aside. No, life's pretty good. Got some exciting stuff coming up pretty soon. With Realms Deep just on the horizon, so been pretty busy, but good busy.
Like Realms Deep, that's at the end of next month, I think.
Yeah, September 30th, I believe, is the date.
That
weekend.
We'll get into that in a little bit. But first of all, we'd like to begin the journey by asking this particular question: what got you interested in video games, both on a personal and a professional level?
So you mean playing for a personal level? Or modding?
Playing video games and the interest of building video games.
Yeah, because I grew up in a household that, like, my parents wouldn't quite call them gamers, but they did enjoy computer games. My dad was a huge RTS nerd, and I'm old enough to have grown up playing things like Dune 2, the original RTS, and Civilization 1 with two big features. So that's the kind of game that I started off playing as a kid. A little bit of Doom in there, but first-person shooters didn't really grab me. But yeah, right from a young age, there's always been computer games in the house, and I've always been somewhat obsessed with them. But as far as modding stuff goes, I actually first experimented with the Red Alert level editor way back when, making maps for that. Civilization 2 had a decent level editor. Making custom stuff for that, and so I've always kind of messed around with a bit of that. Would have been probably a teenager about 20 years ago when I first discovered Doom level editing through with a mate of mine. He was the one who actually really got me into Doom. We're still good friends, and we bought an ancient editor called Deep Sea. And anyone who's familiar with Doom editing knows that it's an awful program. It has a tendency to crash a lot. But that kind of got into my bloodstream a bit, and we messed around that. And I ended up, probably sticking with it for a good 5 or 6 years in that initial stint. But then, you get distracted. I went to university, that kind of stuff, and didn't come back to modding in a real serious way until about 5 years ago. Just over 5, beginning of 2018. Kind of looked at some of my old maps that I had made a while back and thought, these are pretty cool. I wonder if I could try and finish them. And it just kind of took off from there. So since I started that, I kind of joined the Doom community, and Discord was a thing at that point. And so found some fellow modders and got really stuck into it. And then it was probably about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, had the idea of, because I kind of successfully built a bit of a community myself because I stream a bit, and some of my maps have garnered a little bit of attention. Just had the idea of what if I can create a bit of a hub for people to share their work? There's a bunch of really cool projects that the people making them don't really have time to do community management or build a following or post on Twitter or anything like that. And some of them I was involved in. And I was like, I can provide a bit of a space for these people, and put the idea out there. They're like, yeah, no, we'd love to do that. So got that going, and then it kind of morphed into the idea of publishing games. That was kind of the seed. So yeah, that was a couple of years ago now. And during that process, the mod I'd been working on for many, many years, Age of Hell has itself turned into a commercial endeavor. That's what you can see on the screen there now. It's the new demo map. So yeah, it was it wasn't like I'm going to make commercial games right now. It was a slow process, kind of ship a Theseus transition. At some point, all these bits and pieces that I was changing, well, fuck, might as well turn it into a full standalone and see what we can do with it.
Yeah, this is a story we've encountered on the program before, where modders get so into modding they end up making their own games, one fashion or another.
Yeah, no, it is a very common story, especially it seems to be more so like this generation, or not necessarily an age split, but this gaming generation. The editing tools are more easy to get hold of than they ever have been. Even for things like Unity and Unreal, you can just download it and start messing around. There's Gmod, Quake-based stuff. There's a lot of choices out there. So whatever things you use to mod for, you can kind of extrapolate that out into into something commercial. And it also, in terms of distribution, it kind of like the supremacy of Steam means that you can always find an audience to play it. And social media being what it is, a double-edged sword. It's not always good, but you can share your work and get eyes on it relatively easily, certainly compared to 15, 20 years ago.
True enough. I suppose the bigger issue is more of there's so much more these days.
Yeah. Very saturated market. It is, and there's a lot of good stuff that does fly under the radar. There's far too many games for any one person to play in a lifetime. But I view that as a good thing. I think more choice is good. It can make it hard to sell, but it's we're in a real golden age of gaming these days. And you just look at what's been released over the last month. You have Black Labyrinth, Turbo Overkill, Sprawl just dropped today. Stuff like just coming out of the woodwork left, right, and center.
Yeah, like Hrot's third episode came out not too long ago.
That just dropped out of nowhere as well. Like the Hrot devs, he's quite insane because he just drop that, no publicity, nothing. Just here you go, guys. Here's a new episode, and it went gangbusters because there's a lot of people looking out for it. But that was quite an interesting piece of marketing.
Yeah, I think it might have backfired with the third episode because like that was so quiet. Not a lot of people noticed.
Well, yeah, I didn't know. No one knew until the day it came out. It was it was an odd one, but the game's obviously very, very good.
Yeah, I mean, it's very good. It's just, once again, there are already a lot of so-called boomer shooters out there now. I suppose my question in regards to that is, how do you handle that reality? How do you approach the market with your set of FPS games?
It varies from game to game, and some are more naturally marketable than others. Like something like Age of Hell, which is the one that I'm making. The level design there, I feel really pops. It's quite a visually appealing game that doesn't need a whole lot of explanation around it. Whereas something like, say, Relentless Frontier is a much more technical game. Still looks really good, but it's a natural setting, space colony on a planet kind of thing. And it's very mechanically involved. There's a lot of depth to the gameplay. So you have to kind of be a bit more descriptive in how to get it. The idea across, and it's things like people playing it, on YouTube and streaming and that kind of thing does a lot more work in showing it. And then some games like Disdain are very combat driven, and it's the gameplay itself. Watching someone fight, even if it's a short clip, that's what really sells that game. So it does vary from project to project, and that's where my role as a publisher comes in, is trying to find that sweet spot for each game. Like what makes this one stand out? Because as you say, there's a lot out there, and it is a lot harder to just go, hey, I made a boomer shooter, and people go, wow, I haven't heard of one of those before. Like maybe 5 years ago when Dusk kind of burst onto the scene. Since then, there's been hundreds of them released. So you do have to work a bit harder to get a lot of eyes on it. But I think it's going well. And events like Realms Deep are a big part of it. trying to getting on that billing and being able to showcase in there is a real privilege.
I can imagine. But that does speak to how big this, revival or whatever you want to call it, has become in a very short amount of time.
Very short, yeah.
Because because Dusk and Ion Fury, like the first bits of the boomer shooters that aren't old shooters from the 90s being revived for the modern day.
Because Dusk was, I feel like maybe 5 years ago. I came to it relatively late. I think it was when the third episode was released. That and the Medieval were in a bundle together. And that was definitely less than 5 years ago. And the landscape has changed so much since then.
I'm not sure if it's so much changed as, it's just there's so much more of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe not changed as expanded. It's a wider vista rather than changing in the granularity.
It's like I think change would be like if the current FPS scene, the current retro FPS scene looks like I don't know, Serious Sam or Painkiller.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that because there is some changes in the wind. I think you're looking at a good example is New Blood, who do tend to be at the front of any trends. They're making a isometric RPG, I think it is, similar to the original Fallout. Dave Szymanski made Iron Lung, that horror sub game, which is first person, but it's a very different vibe. You can see these people who were part of that first wave are now looking at what else can I make. There's a lot of shooters out there. Let's make a different game. There's a lot of really good platformers out there at the moment, like Blasphemous 2 is just about to drop. I'm not a huge fan of the genre personally, but the art style in those games is always fantastic. I think there's a lot of future in those. They're a bit easier to make mechanically as well. That's interesting.
If there's a genre that's oversaturated on the indie market, it's definitely the Metroidvania type of platformer. Not that it's anything rogue. Just so many roguelikes.
Yes, yep.
If we had 100 subs for every roguelike we've reviewed, we would probably eclipse PewDiePie by now.
I mean, no joke. I'm working on a review of a game that is a roguelike brick breaker like Arkanoid that's set against the backdrop of a 90s desktop.
I wonder if there's room for more traditional platformers. I know there's a really cool looking Metal Slug clone or homage called Operation Echo. That looks really promising. But it's very much a Metal Slug based traditional side scroller. Where it's pure combat kind of thing. So there's a little bit of variety out there, and I'm very curious to see what else pops out of the woodwork.
Oh, no doubt. But I suppose refocusing back on boomer shooters. You've mentioned that you've got a range of FPSs in the works. I suppose you can tell the audience, what these games are.
There's definitely some that I can't talk about. Going to be coy, including a couple that are being announced at the previously mentioned Realms Deep. But the ones that we've got, Project Absentia is in early access. That was our first kind of published game to go actually able to be bought. That's kind of a Flash inspired, the old Flash comic. Cartoon, that you used to get on Newgrounds and Evil's World and that kind of stuff, and very heavily inspired by Rise of the Triad in terms of its combat mechanics. So that one you can get. Extranium is one we signed recently. That's in early access at the moment. It's like a sci-fi with a little bit of RPG mechanics. There's a little bit of upgradey kind of stuff in there. RPG light and but very pixely. And has a pretty old school feel, similar to Wolfenstein. Not flat like Wolfenstein, but it's got a bit of that vibe to it. That one's really cool. What else? Disdain, we mentioned that one. That's a kind of eldritch Lovecraftian, very heavily inspired by Quake, as its kind of primary starting point, because that actually did start off with the main dev, Nash. He's the only dev, crazy solo dev. Made a Quake clone in 10 days as a kind of game jam challenge to himself, and then that got really well received, so he expanded that into a full game idea. That's come along real nice. That uses a new bespoke engine as well, derived from GZ Doom, but being rewritten for some pretty cool new features that we'll be sharing later this year. There's obviously Age of Hell, which is my one. Relentless Frontier, which we mentioned before as well. That's got a demo out. Early access isn't too far away for that. I think that's all the ones that I'm allowed to talk about. Hopefully I haven't forgotten one. I feel really bad if I have. Oh, Hellslinger, fuck. Which is a hand-drawn, literally hand-drawn art style. The lead dev, he does it all with on a draw pad, and animates it the old school way. So it's got that kind of cell shading effect, but genuinely from the way it's made, rather than a filter on the screen. And that's got a demo out now as well. And that's got multiple characters that you can play. That one's very Painkiller inspired. Actually, it's got a very similar plot line, kind of battle out of hell stuff going on, which is really cool. I think actually I'm actually going to double check, because if I miss someone, I'm going to be really upset with myself.
You forgot something when you
you didn't talk about me. Exoside, that's one. That's being developed by us. So I'm helping out the lead dev there, Nico. It's actually being published by Apogee. And that's quite similar to Turbo Overkill. That's an Unreal Engine 4. Although he's been dabbling with Unreal 5 as well, just to see how easy it would be to port over. But that's very, very fast-paced sci-fi, lots of bugs to kill. And plays quite similar to Turbo Overkill, I would say. Yeah. But we got some stuff to announce later this year at Realms Deep that in the field of some new games that I'm very excited about sharing with everyone. Been sitting on some news for a long time, so it's going to be good to finally be able to pop that onto the world. There's one in particular that I think people are going to be really excited about.
Indeed. Well, I look forward to that, but given that we can't really talk about those particular games at this time, we'll shift into the ones that we can actually have a conversation about here and now.
Yeah, no, that's that makes sense.
Anyway, because even without those other games, you got quite a lot here. Like the chat's noting you've got quite a lot on your plate. And I suppose my first question here is, like, how big is HellForge Studios? How many people are working there, and how do you keep all of these games coordinated?
As far as like official employees go, it's literally just me. Yes, I'm insane. But again, it's one of the original kind of byline that I put on the concept was a collaborative game dev company. So we all the devs work together and help each other out. So we'll test each other's games, provide feedback, knowledge, and that's the attraction for indie devs to sign with us, is provide an environment where you get a lot of help essentially for free. The expectation is that you give the assistance back, so that's the quote unquote cost. But it's a great place to come and get a lot of help without having to pay upfront or anything like that. Lot of pitching in and working with each other, which is really, really, really it's fun. Everyone gets the benefits from it. So that's a big part of it is lots of just pitching in and small indie helping small indie kind of stuff. So it is kind of insane that what I'm trying to do, and there is plans to expand to be able to like fully employ people and grow to that point. But at the moment, while we're still making games, we're not actually bringing in a whole lot of revenue until we release some stuff. that's the way it's got to be. So I essentially work 2 jobs at the moment, which means I don't have a whole lot of spare time. But I do enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, and that keeps me motivated and going. Although also, the last couple of weeks with the Realms Deep prep has been pretty intense. Lots of deadlines to meet and stuff like that. But yeah, no. So yeah, it's as far as the company goes, it's me, myself, and I.
I gotta admit, that's not the answer I was expecting, given the workload.
Yeah, I will give a special shout out to my partner. She does a lot of the marketing stuff, helping out behind the scenes with that, and she's very organized. Keeps me focused. She's really good at that. So yeah, shout out to Shannon. And yeah, I get a lot of assistance from my community as well. Really good support networks. So yeah, it sounds like a bit of a cliche, but it's quote unquote team effort.
Yeah, I would say so. Well, I would imagine it would have to be, given because we do have quite a number of solo devs on the program where they do handle everything.
Solo devs are mad. They are crazy people.
It depends on the game. Not every. Like, some of them are legitimately like, I'm developing a full 3D RPG. We've had that, but more often than not, they're helming smaller games. Like something that evolved out of a game jam, or a platformer that's relatively simple. We had one of those on the show not too long ago. But it does depend. Because helming even a reasonably sized indie game can take about 2 to 3 years, I'd say.
Oh, I'd say 2. If you're doing it, then you're doing pretty well, to be honest. Judging at least compared to things like HL's been probably 3 years proper in development, which seems to be quite common for a lot of the GZ Doom things that started off as a Doom mod. Sulaco and Supplice is at least 10 years in the works. That takes these games a long time for people when they've got day jobs and stuff to a lot of the time, by the time it gets to announcing it publicly, there's already been half a decade worth of work on it.
It's not just that. It's also the recent time, let's say. The pandemic.
For sure.
Hit development communities all across the globe really hard.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, granted that also spurned off a whole new wave of development.
It's a double-edged sword. It's obviously stressful and people lost jobs and that kind of stuff, but also freed up time. When you're locked down at home, it's like, well, I might as well work on my game.
All right. Anyway, so as much as I would like to probe all of these games in depth, I don't think we have that kind of time in the here and now.
That's fair enough.
So zero in on this time on the one that you're personally developing, and that's the Age of Hell. First of all, I'm wondering. Well, I think I can guess where this came from in terms of inspiration. Since, well, I'm not going to lie, it's very, very doomy.
Yeah. No, that's given that it did start off as a Doom mod, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's slowly morphed into what it is, but yeah, 100%. It's wearing its inspiration on its sleeve.
Mm-hmm. Right. And what has it morphed into? Like, what is the Age of Hell?
Yeah, so how best to describe this? It's I'd say it's very much a Doom plus in the gameplay. There's a lot of Doom and our legacy enemies, but we're actually working on now on adding in more mechanics to add in a lot more variety to the combat. We've added in alt fires to all the weapons. One of the new features in the demo about to release is upgrades for your weapons as well. So kind of, I guess, probably say it's similar to the new Dooms in that regard, where you can there's going to be these chests that you open up and you choose. They randomly spits out upgrades, and you choose one and you can kind of like craft a build as you play through. So much more focused on continuous play than say Doom. Like classic Doom, like pistol starting each map is pretty much ingrained in the DNA these days. So yeah, at first glance it does look. There's definitely a lot of similarities, but under the hood, there's quite a few changes. We've added things like a dash. There's the hammer, which is a really central part of the gameplay. So much so that there's a mode where you only have your hammer, and there's a whole gameplay mode built around that, which is fairly challenging, but it is really, really fun once you get the hang of it. And then the other really big kind of design changes is the level design, and that's my specialty. That's what I'm good at. So you'll see these grandiose, abstract, massive environments that I don't really see that outside of a handful of games. That's not a huge. That's the most unique thing about it, I'd say, is the environment design, and that's something I take a lot of pleasure in is building these maps. It can take a while, but that's a real standout feature. Been exploring some new workflows with this new demo map, stuff that I haven't really done before. So it's been a lot of fun bringing that all to life. Can't tell you when, because that the release date for the demo is going to be announced at Realms Deep, but it is definitely this year. So everyone will get to experience it quite soon. It's not far away.
Indeed. And what's the story, as it were, for this game? Or are we doing another homage to Doom and just having flavor?
There is actually a story. It's probably most adjacent to a Medieval. So Medieval's conceptually the game that has inspired me the most. And it's also, I love the level design in that. It's a beautiful game. The platformer Medieval? No, Medieval, the New Blood first-person shooter came out similar time to Dusk. It's one of the originals of this new wave of games, and it's that's probably my favorite boomer shooter. And the expansion pack just dropped a couple of weeks ago. So that's a stunning game, incredible. So that has a story through it, but it's not laid on thick. There's not like narration and characters. It's a bit more than the Doom tech screen, but it's environmental storytelling. There's little hints of some great cataclysm that's happened. You're trying to save these realms. So there'll be so especially initially, Age of Hell presents like that, fairly storyless. But there is definitely one, and I'm going to be coy because a lot of it is stuff that I haven't actually revealed yet. Because there's 6 episodes planned. It's going to be a big game, all going well, and that story will develop over that time. There will be a main antagonist. So unlike Doom, where you're just like fighting the nameless hordes, there is going to be something opposing you, and the character Crusader guy, the story of the Crusader is going to be much more developed than Doom guy. You're a member of an order, the last one standing. What happens to the rest of them? Your other Crusader brethren and all that kind of stuff. And I got some good things planned for. I think it was episode 3, like showing off some of your former kind of homeland stuff. Old Crusader keeps that have been corrupted, and mainly because there's some aesthetic designs that I want to explore, inspired by Diablo 4? No, Diablo 3, sorry, the Corrupted Heaven act. I was like, I want to make some of this stuff. This looks really cool. So a lot of the story develops around that. What feels like fun to make? But there's, like I said, there's 6 episodes, and they're each got their own theme, and they get more and more hellish as you go through. So episode 1's all kind of like icy brutalism, big monolithic concrete structures that are not so much evil as very abstract. And then episode 2 is death themed, with kind of like heavy usage of green and orange. And the demo map is actually from episode 2. So that's the kind of themes, getting a bit more gothic. And its design, a bit more evil. Episode 3 is like full red and black gothic cathedrals and stuff like that. And if anyone's played my Doom map Bastion of Chaos, that is a proof of concept for that episode. Episode 4 gets into like tech hell. So I think Event Horizon inspired stuff. Bit of Geiger in there, his kind of organic alien designs will feature. Episode 5 then goes like full abstract, void, non-Euclidean, freaky geometry and stuff. Getting proper evil at that point. And then episode 6 is when you like fully descend into hell. And just go ham on the hell tropes. Fairly cliched stuff, but yeah, we over the top kind of Doom Eternal levels of geometry, which would be a lot of fun to make. And throughout that process, the antagonist will reveal itself more and more. Start off like just as a faceless evil to becoming like this thing this character that's out to get you personally. Which I think will be a lot of fun to just slowly reveal over time. Already got like a bit of a proof of concept for what it's going to look like, we'll start leaking little bits and pieces over the next year or so about that. The plan will be to make a bit more of that information public about the story as we get close to releasing episode 1, which so probably end of next year, if not later. At this point, there's still a bit of work to do, but yeah, get in there.
Yeah, and what sort of arsenal are you building here in terms of weaponry?
Yeah, so pretty classic at its core. So you got the pistol, shotgun, double shotgun, machine, minigun, plasma rifle, BFG analogs, but they've all got their own alt fires, and they've all got we've worked hard to give them all very specific niches. So the pistol will always be useful. It's the best long range kind of finishing gun. It actually packs a reasonable punch. It's verging on semi-automatic, so you can do a volley of fire pretty easily. So it's great for picking things off. If you look at the original Doom weapons, the chain gun just fully deprecates the pistol. You never use the pistol again in classic Doom because it's terrible. So we wanted to avoid that, and the alt fires help give them all their own specific usage. So the shotgun is inspired by the Constantine's Dragon Breath Crucifix shotgun. So its alt fire is a big flaming Dragon Breath shot. The minigun does a bullet storm as its alt fire, which is horrendously inefficient ammo usage, but just dishes out a ton of damage in a quick space of time. The super shotgun has an explosive alt fire, which is just really high single target damage. Great for just killing one thing really, really quickly.
Grenade jumping or no on that?
Might do. We've got jump pad, and Sprawl actually has shotgun jumping, and it's hella fun. So that's not a bad idea. I like that actually. I'm actually going to write that down. On Altfire, yeah. The rocket launcher, inspired heavily by the Unreal 8-ball. So it's Altfire, you charge up 3 rockets and release them in a volley. BFG doesn't have an alt-fire yet, but instead of that, and we still call it the blessed BFG, the blessed force of God. So I was quite pleased with that, getting that analogy to work, that anagram to work. There's going to be, and this is a little bit of a leak, because I haven't announced this publicly, all I have talked about on stream. Each episode's going to have a BFG tier evil weapon that's themed around each episode. So that'll be essentially replacing the alt-fire. So in episode 1, it's all ice themed. The BFG is going to be an evil ice weapon, and my inspiration for that is the Diablo 2 frozen orb spell, where it flies out and fires ice shards everywhere, lots of projectiles, something like that. Anyway, so I've got ideas for sort of the first 3 episodes. Got them pretty much locked down in my head for that weapon concept. So that adds, So like I said, at its core, it feels like at the base, it's quite similar to common games, but we've added plenty of flavor to make them everything feel unique. And then on top of all that, there's the hammer, which I wanted to make sure that the melee weapon stayed useful throughout the entire game as well, something that you want to use. So it can parry. If you throw it, it explodes without the same force as a rocket. It can stun enemies, and then there's power-ups specifically around it that turn it into a super weapon. Our version of invulnerability is essentially the hammer rage. As long as you keep killing things, you can't die. Or it's very, very hard to, because it gives you lifesteal and a lot of AoE damage, and building fights around that's really fun. That's also a mechanical tool as well. Like you'll see bells scattered around. At the moment, they just do things like open doors, essentially a form of switch. But there's other plans for mechanics to build around the bells as well. Some of them will be weapons. Some of them will be access to secret areas and stuff like that. Yeah.
Reminds me quite a bit of Hexen, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, some people have said that, which is interesting, and I think that's because it's inspired by Medieval, which is inspired by Hexen, like that kind of DNA is threaded through. Because I've never played Hexen, and I have no desire to. Too many switches.
I can confirm that. I've played quite a bit of Hexen. Well, I think it's also because Hexen Heretic, it's one of the few FPSs that is really melee focused.
True, yeah.
Especially Hexen. I know it depends on the class, but whereas like Doom and Quake, their melee focused attentions are really bad.
Terrible. Yep. Yeah. No, that's you're not the first person to make that comparison, which is, I do find quite interesting. Like I said, considering I haven't played Hexen. I did play a friend, Jimmy. He's James Paddock. He's a long-standing Doom community member and amazing composer. But he made a WAD for, I think it was technically Heretic. It was played in, but it had a whole lot of Hexen stuff folded into it. It was very, very cool. It's called Faithless. And anyone who likes Heretic or Hexen should definitely go play the Faithless trilogy. So I have played that. So I've had a taste of. Yeah, no, it's really, really good. Highly recommend it. So I've had a taste of the Hexen-y kind of vibes, but I've certainly haven't played the base game.
Indeed. And so how big do the monster fights get in this game? Because I'm seeing quite a lot of hordes, if you will.
Yep, that's a thing that I like, and it's one of the reasons that I love making maps for Doom. Is I'm sure you might, or not sure, but you may have heard the term slaughter map, which is a genre of gameplay that I think, don't know if it started in Doom, but it's certainly very popular in there, and it's gotten more popular over the last kind of 4 years. A lot of really good mappers have turned their skills to making slaughter maps, and that is as the name would suggest, it's about slaughtering hordes of demons. So I wanted to bring that to Age of Hell, but in a way that was approachable to people of a wide variety of skill levels. So I put a lot of effort into difficulty balancing to make sure that people who don't want a ball-busting challenge or more casual playthrough can still enjoy massacring huge piles of demons. That is a core part of the gameplay is big arena fights. And especially you get the clip that you're watching, the last fight that I sent you, that is the first proper slaughter arena in the demo map, but there's several of them following on from that, especially the last fight punctuates with a massive arena where you literally hundreds of things to kill. But you have the weaponry to do that. So finding that balance, not making it a slog too grindy, is tricky, but definitely doable. And that's one of the things I'll be making a change for the new demo is I'm just going to tweak some of the monster hit point levels down a little bit, so you don't feel like you're just pumping shells into an endless swarm with little to show for it. And the new upgrades will also help with that. They add a lot of power to your arsenal. It's a bit of a balancing act, but I think there's definitely a market for it if you can make it fun and engaging. And like I said, not a slog. People should enjoy it.
Hmm. I suppose so.
Time will tell. Time will tell.
Like it can be difficult to gauge how an audience will react to things.
Yeah, and you can just all you can do is put your best foot forward and make the best game you can make. If people like it, then great. And if they don't, well, that's how it goes sometimes.
Right. Like, as much as I would like to continue this conversation, we are sorely pressed for time here.
That's right.
So I want to invite you back on the program for, say, November 1st, only to talk more about your games, but, by then your other stuff should be revealed and we can actually...
that'll work well. I can, so Realms Deep will have happened then, so we can do a bit of a recap of that and I'll have some more news that we can talk about for sure. Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah. Anyway, so in the meantime, Petty, play us to the next segment. All right, so welcome to the topic of discussion. This week we are talking about Quake 2. So
Quake 2.
See, that's actually that's not correct in the least. Quake 2 is not Quake. Very famously so, in fact. Quake 2 was supposed to be a different game. They were angling to call it War with an O. I think it was supposed to be an acronym. But apparently they couldn't get the trademark on it, or there are variations on this story, but basically what they wanted to call it couldn't be implemented in time, so they just they already had the Quake name, so they slapped it on this unrelated game, and Quake 2 was birthed, if you will. Because Quake 2 and Quake 1 are separate games, separate. It got complicated with the remakes. Not going to really get into that here because that gets into the new stuff that Quake 2 has. But let's just say it got, it's weird to say that about early id lore, but it happened. Now, I suppose the question here is, who here has actually played Quake 2 before?
It's the Quake I've actually played the most of.
Sorry. I was going to say, I've played exactly the amount of Quake 2 that you'd expect for it being a PC FPS.
Yeah. It's like Quake 2 I played a bit of back in the day, but gotta admit, I never really gravitated towards that one.
So interestingly enough, Quake 2 is before Quake 4 came out. I never played Quake 1. I played Quake 2 a hell of a lot as a teenager on the PlayStation. So that was my experience with it. And me and my brother playing a lot of deathmatch, split screen, blowing each other up with hyperblasters. I really like Quake 2. I got a lot of love for it.
Quake 1 was the Quake I played a lot in my formative years. And I think that might have been something that really colored me toward Quake 2, because Quake and Quake 2 really don't have a lot. It really is the bridge between, say, Wolfenstein 3D and Doom. Maybe not that pronounced, but especially mechanically. But Quake 2 is this basically could be seen precursor to the likes of Halo and just all of the Space Marine stuff that would inflict the FPS genre in the mid 2000s. Because Quake 2 did all that, but in 1997. So it was kind of ahead of the curve on certain trends. But still remaining very much a 90s FPS for the most part. Like, Quake 2 also represents some interesting breakaways from the id design, like most notably the hub world structure. It's like instead of being your typical level to level affair, it's more like Hexen or Strife, where it's a grouping of levels that you intersect. Not as much as those games, but there's still a bit of back and forth. Like the part I'm at right now, the sewer section has a bit of that. But it is interesting from the perspective of its software, because it shows that they were reaching the point where just doing another one of those games wasn't quite enough. Like even in the Carmack era, because Quake 1 was very famously going to be something much more ambitious, but it didn't end up that way because of just how new 3D development was. And I suppose I do have to address that meme that's been going around on Twitter X lately. In terms of people didn't care about graphics back in the day.
That is a dumb take. Like Quake 1 was
cared about graphics.
Quake 1 was stunning when it came out.
Oh my god. I want to yell at that person for how wrong that take is, because especially the PC FPS scene, or the serious PC scene in the 90s.
If your card was not Quake compatible, you might as well have thrown it in the trash.
Oh, it's not even that. It's every 6 months, you needed to get a new card, because graphics were advancing so quickly that in order to actually accurately keep up with the times, you had to spend a lot of money fairly frequently in order to make sure you were on the cutting edge.
Well, it's interesting. Quake was meant to be made after Doom 1, but the current tech couldn't really support what they wanted to do with the engine. So they made Doom 2. And in I think it was 8-10 months that it took to make Doom 2 and get that out the door, the tech had caught up to what they wanted to do, and they could make Quake 1.
Yeah, the specific thing that they needed was 3D acceleration, because that's the thing that helped with the floating points math that Quake and full 3D FPSs needed. That's the thing about Quake. It's the first full 3D FPS game. It's not build engine. It's not Doom. It's not anything custom. It is all polygons, and that required a lot more horsepower than something that was 2 or 2.5D. Anyway, into the whole argument about how Quake, which is better, Quake 1 or Quake 2. it's really more of a personal preference. Quality-wise, they're about the same. Truth be told, I think the only thing that Quake 2 really has on Quake 1 in that regard is weapon selection. Like the development scars of Quake 1 really showcase in the arsenal, because you only got 8 weapons, and most of them are just the next stage up. It's like the shotgun, super shotgun, the nail gun, the super nail gun, or the rocket launcher and the grenade launcher actually at least are a bit differentiated, but still rather unspectacular there. Whereas the Quake 2 arsenal may not be as creative as, say, Blood or Shadow Warrior, but it's far more interesting than Quake.
To be fair, few things are as imaginative as Blood.
This is true.
Blood was pretty special. Blood was pretty special in that regard. I mean, Blood's fucking fantastic, but
yeah. I'm just noting that there's actual variety in the weaponry.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I didn't like Quake 1 at all, is just the weapons all feel very mediocre. There's not a whole lot of variety. Even the super shotgun's very tame. Compare that to the Quake 2 SSG, and that thing's a cannon.
They recalibrated things because for whatever reason, the weaponry of Quake 1 got strong, got weaker, or like your default weapon, like the pistol of Quake, is the single-barreled shotgun.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Versus
wasn't
Quake
that one
2,
of the selling points that we skip over the dinky little pistol?
So we have a dinky little shotgun instead.
Okay, yeah. In effect, it's just okay. Your dinky little pistol effectively just has the graphics of a shotgun instead.
Well, I think that the weapon selection of Quake 2 tells you how well that went over, because nobody copied this idea from Quake 1. Nobody defaults to the to the starting shotgun. It's it's a starting pistol or something like that. You still have a shitty starting weapon, but the shotgun is supposed to be the workhorse of your boomy shooty FPS. And that's definitely the case in Quake 2. Now that and the machine gun, and not so much the chain gun, because it's like a chain gun where it wastes too much ammo. Especially the Quake 2 chain gun, because it's got this quirk of you have to rev it up, and it continues to rev even after you've stopped hitting the trigger button. So, it just pours out ammo. Also worth noting in terms of Quake 2 is the attempt at id Software having an actual narrative. I mean, there's an actual story. It's not much of a story, but it's definitely more than the dungeoneering flavor text of Doom and Quake.
You get more than "Oops, accidentally opened the door to hell. Go kill the demons."
No, that's not purple prosy enough. Quake, the Quake 2, you can tell that Romero left because there's nothing flowery going on in Quake 2. If you haven't read any of the text in between the episodes of Quake 1, it's really hard to convey how pretentious they are. Quake 2 is a lot more straightforward in that regard. And it's also got attempts at things that other FPSs would do, like objectives. Quake 2 makes a nice try of it, but GoldenEye 007, it's not. Maybe a weird comparison, but that's really the game I kind of think of from this time that really successfully did objective-based level design well. Like, Quake 2 has it, but it's still a lot of going to point A and point B and just pressing a thing, like kind of the thing that you were going to do anyway. Anyway, also worth noting, Quake 2's multiplayer, built off of the first Quake, and I'll admit I didn't play a lot of, I really didn't play Quake 2 multiplayer, so I don't have a lot to say about it. I know others do, but I felt like I needed to mention it, given that it is a big part of the Quake series identity. Especially considering the Quake 3 completely went in the direction of multiplayer. Anyway, there's definitely a lot more I want to say about Quake 2, but that'll have to wait for the Sunday review, where we're going to be talking. We're going to be talking about reviewing the remaster of Quake 2. And this is a good point to segue into the ending because we got another show happening in about 10 minutes. But anyway. So coming up on the Sunday reviews, in addition to the Quake 2 review, we got reviews of Plong, Star Wolf, Seeker of the Secret Space, and Side to Side. So look for that, and look for the new episode of Moonhawk Studios Presents happening in about 10 minutes, give or take arrivals. But until then, I shall wish you good gaming.